Hello everyone, how's it going? I am Crendor and I'm going to be bringing back my rambling series where I just ramble about whatever I want to ramble about. And this is a great opportunity for me to ramble about sports that many people would not care about, or just whatever else I feel like talking about. And so today I thought it'd be a good time to bring up the NFL playoff picture and kind of discuss this NFL season and my thoughts on it and everything like that. So either if you enjoy hearing me ramble, you enjoy hearing me talk about sports, or you just need something to listen to for a while, you're in luck. So if you have any things or any comments or recommendations or whatever it may be, leave those in the comments below. And let me know what you'd like to hear me talk about or ramble about, or even ASMR, because I've been trying to think of different types of ASMR things to do as an avid listener of ASMR. And I'd like to do some noise type things. I've done keyboard typing, but I would do more keyboard typing because I actually like that sound. And I'm actually going to be, I'm probably going to buy a Blue Yeti. I don't want to buy that microphone with the ears on it because I feel creepy using it, but maybe if this got really popular, I would do it just because it'd be like, all right, whatever. But Blue Yeti works, man. A lot of it's just the audio editing in it, or in general anyway. Plus, I'm using my good microphone right now, so it should sound pretty good, like radio quality. Unless I mess something up in the audio editing, which I probably will. But, you know, it's not like I do this as my career, right? Haha. Okay. So, again, if you have any sounds or whatever, leave them in the comments below, like Crendor. I want to hear you do the, or whatever it is. I don't know. Okay. So first off, what a crazy NFL season. This has been an insane NFL season, and part of it's due to so many injuries that have occurred. The top one, relating to the team I like, the Packers, was Aaron Rodgers got injured in week 5, I believe. It was around week 5 or 6. And he broke his collarbone. And the Packers had to play the majority of the season without Aaron Rodgers. And that made them not do so well. And a lot of their flaws got shown. It was pretty apparent that the team was built around Aaron Rodgers. People have made the joke that they are the Green Bay Aaron Rodgers. They're not even, a real team that's just carried by him, essentially. And so right now they're 7-8. A team will play 16 weeks of a 17-week season. You get one bye week to rest, which varies for all the teams. And so right now they have one more game to play, and they'll either finish at 7-9 or 8-8. And I'm actually kind of hoping they lose so they get a better draft pick, because it affects your draft positioning for when you get new players out of college and all that stuff. And they play the Detroit Lions, who also can't get into the playoffs, so it's a completely meaningless game, and that's another reason I hope they lose. Also, that's my phone. Do you like phone sounds? I don't know. Bloop. All right, let me silence that. Next game up, I'm just going to go through all the games and then talk about the playoff stuff. Houston, Indianapolis, that's another meaningless game. Both those teams are bad, 4-11, 3-12. Houston, I think the thing with both of those teams is they're going to get good draft picks, but I think they have a pretty good upside. Both of them have quarterbacks that can come back and play pretty well. In Deshaun Watson and Andrew Luck, although I have no idea what's happening with Andrew Luck, but we'll find out. The Bears are playing the Vikings, 5-10 Bears and the 12-3 Vikings. Vikings are going into the playoffs. I'm not sure about their quarterback situation, though. I'm kind of skeptical, but I'll talk about that later. New England and the New York Jets. New England 12-3. New England's always up there, man. They're just always up there, ready to win. Tom Brady. As long as they have Tom Brady, they're going to be up there, unless Tom Brady just randomly falls apart one day. Jets started out pretty well. Now they're 5-10. Now they're not that great. Washington playing the Giants. Washington 7-8. Giants 2-13. New York Giants very bad. Probably one of the worst teams in football. Eli Manning probably going to retire or go to a different team. Probably go to a different team and then retire. But Dallas playing Philadelphia. Philadelphia is going to the playoffs. Dallas is not. Although Dallas is 8-7, so they're not terrible, but it is what it is. Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Cleveland is looking to become the second 0-16 team ever. The second winless team in 17-week season. I believe there was the Buccaneers went 0-14 in like the 70s or 80s or something, but they only played 14 games back then. And the Lions actually went 0-16 about 10 years ago. I think it was 10 years ago. And that was the last time the Packers missed the playoffs, ironically, was when there was an 0-16 team. And 2 years after that, they won the Super Bowl. So hopefully that trend continues. Carolina, Atlanta. It's actually a pretty important game. Atlanta wins and they get into the playoffs. Carolina playing for positioning in the postseason. If Carolina wins and the Saints lose, I believe they win the division, and then vice versa, and that would determine who gets to play at home, which is pretty important. Cincinnati plays Baltimore. Baltimore is trying to make the playoffs as well. Cincinnati is not. They're going to be moving on from their head coach, who's been their coach for a long time. Buffalo, Miami. Buffalo trying to make the playoffs for the first time since, I think 1999. I don't even think they've made the playoffs in the new millennium, which is kind of insane. So I'm really hoping they win and everything lines up correctly and they go to the playoffs. But if not, they at least got pretty close, which is better than, being 2-13 or something. 2-14 like the Giants. And again, the Giants have won the Super Bowl pretty recently, so it's not like it's crazy. New Orleans and Tampa Bay. Again, New Orleans hoping to win. Tampa Bay's 4-11. They need a good draft pick. Honestly, they'd probably rather lose. Jacksonville, Tennessee. Also going to be a good game. Jacksonville has been not playing that well, so they're going to try this game because they want to go into the playoffs. First time being in the playoffs since 2007, by the way. Jacksonville's going back. They've been very bad for a long time, finally playing well again, but not recently. They've been losing some pretty bad games, so they're going to be trying hard. Tennessee, the Titans, also haven't made the playoffs in a long time, but they're also not playing that well. And I'm kind of hoping the Bills get in over the Titans. I think they're actually a little better than the Titans, to be honest, but it almost depends on a weekly basis who's better. It's kind of like a flip of the coin. Kansas City, Denver. It's another game. Kansas City is now in the playoffs, and Denver is not. Denver's been playing pretty badly. They've been doing well recently in past years, with Peyton Manning and everything they've done, but now they are not very good again, and they're going to be picking pretty high in the draft. The Chargers and the Raiders play. Chargers are playing for playoffs as well. They need some dominoes to fall to get in, but if they win, they just got to hope. And then the Raiders are not going to the playoffs. The 49ers and the Rams is an interesting game because the 49ers have been winning lately with Jimmy Garoppolo. They traded for Jimmy Garoppolo, who, if you don't know who that is, which you might not, he was the backup in New England to Tom Brady for years. And when he would play, he'd play pretty well. And you learn behind Tom Brady, you play pretty well. You think like, all right, this guy could be pretty good. But a lot of people were skeptical. They're like, it's just, it's just because he's playing in New England, he's doing well. But now, they traded him to San Francisco. Obviously, because he's still got Tom Brady, so it's like you might as well trade him and get something for him. And he's been playing great. He's pretty much given San Francisco a quarterback they needed. And now they don't have to draft a quarterback, which is like the biggest thing all the bad teams in the league need. And they can focus on just the team around him instead. And I think San Francisco is going to get very competitive again very quickly because they already have some pretty decent offensive linemen. Pretty all right running back. I don't know if they're going to draft another running back, but the one they got's pretty all right. And then they could use some wide receivers. That's a big thing they need, is mainly wide receivers. And maybe some defensive help, but even last year they spent their first pick on a defensive player, and so their defense is getting stronger. That's another thing they need to work on. But I think San Francisco is on the rise. I think the NFC West is going to be an interesting division. But the Cardinals will probably be the worst team in the NFC West out of all those teams. And they're not even a bad team. They're going to be playing Seattle, who's 9-6. Arizona 7-8. Seahawks are also playing to make it into the playoffs. So that's going to be a competitive game, but I think the Seahawks will win that one, especially since they're in Seattle. However, I hope Arizona wins because it'll help the Packers' draft chances a little bit if they win. So those are all the games happening this week. And now we can take a look at the playoff picture for this year's Super Bowl, which I believe is Super Bowl 52, the 52nd Super Bowl. And it'll be happening on February 4th. Wowee. So here's what's happening right now. If the playoffs started today, the Patriots would have the 1 seed, the Steelers would have the 2 seeds. They automatically get bye weeks. And that's what's going to happen. They both get bye weeks. They've clinched those already. The other matches that would happen in the wild card round are the Titans and the Jaguars would play each other. That'd be an interesting game. Primarily because they play this week. So it would be, they play 1 week and then they'd play again the next week. And that's happened quite a bit. You wouldn't think it happens quite a bit, but it's happened even with the Packers. The Packers have had that happen where they played I believe it was the Cardinals. They played the Cardinals 1 week and played them again the next week, or very close, like they played them 2 weeks prior and then played them again. I know it happened, I think, with the Lions or something. There's been quite a few games where teams have had mirror matches in consecutive weeks. And then the other game would be the Ravens and the Chiefs, which I think that would be a good game. I think that'd be a pretty good game to see. But I'm still hoping the Bills get in. I think the Ravens should get in. I think they'll probably win. But the Bills, I'm hoping, get in over the Chargers and the Titans. The Chargers aren't a terrible team, but they just find the worst ways to lose. And that might be fun to watch too. So I don't think the Titans are quite good enough yet to make it into the postseason and be competitive, which is why I don't want them to get in and why I think they're just going to lose this week to the Jaguars. And that's just my opinion. I know there's probably some Titans fans or anyone watching who are like, oh no, I like Tennessee, I like the Titans. But I mean, you have to acknowledge that the Titans have not been very competitive. They're just very sloppy, sluggish, losing to bad teams, not being competitive enough with good teams. I think they're going to get there. I think they need another year of building. That's why I just think the Bills and the Chargers would be a little more competitive than Tennessee would, which is why I want them to get in instead. But hey, if the Titans play the Jaguars well this week, maybe they'll prove me wrong. Who knows? I hope so, because I just want to see competitive football games. Over in the NFC, this is the first year in 9 years that the Packers are not in the playoffs, so I am very disappointed. But, some teams aren't even that lucky. Some teams, like the Bills, haven't been in since 99. Cleveland has lost like 34 games in a row, which is very sad. There's plenty of teams that wish they could get into the playoffs, let alone 9 years in a row. So and that includes a Super Bowl win. So, I mean, I'm quite content being like, you know what, that's fine. Let's take this year. Let's get some better players through the draft, have some higher draft picks, and then come back next year and be a little better and healthier, hopefully. So we have the Eagles as the first seed. Eagles are a team that has been rebuilding for a while, and it's finally paid off. However, Carson Wentz, their quarterback, who probably one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league, playing like it at least when he was healthy, but he tore his ACL. So they're without him, but they're still playing well. They have Nick Foles backing him up. He was a pretty experienced guy. He's played with the Eagles before. And I think he can get them to where they need to go. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult, obviously, but I think they can do it. I think they can still make it to the Super Bowl. I like their defense. I like the players they have. So yeah, I think the Eagles can be good. The Vikings are the 2 seed. I'm a little biased because I'm a Packers fan, so we're in the NFC North. If you don't understand divisions and you're listening to this, division works with there's 4 teams in one division. So it's teams that are typically near each other. So you have the North, the East, the South, the West, and there's the AFC and the NFC. So the AFC and the NFC are just a way of separating teams, so that you have 2 different groups of people. A way I can explain it is, imagine being in school and you're going to have a competition, right? And you put one group of kids in the left part of the school and the other group of kids in the right part of the school. And you have everybody compete in their specific sections of the school. And then the top 2 winners of those 2 sections get to play each other in the championship. That's essentially what the AFC and NFC are. It's just a way of making it so you have 2 number 1 teams from each group. So that's the only difference between the AFC and the NFC, which all they stand for is National Football Conference and American Football Conference. It's, a lot of people hear that and they're like, I don't know what that means. That's all it is. It's just group separation, making it easier to determine 2 number 1 teams to play each other. So the Vikings are in the NFC North. I guess I didn't even explain that. So you have these 2 groups, but within those 2 groups, you have 4 different brackets. And so in the North are the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears, and the Lions, which are Green Bay, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Chicago, and Detroit. So it's, not too hard to get to those places since they're all pretty close together. And those teams will play each other twice a year, and they'll play 1 home game against a team in the division and 1 away game. So the Packers play the Vikings twice a year, once in Green Bay, once in Minnesota. Then they play the Bears once in Chicago, once in Green Bay. So it's, you play those teams every year. So you get kind of competitive with them. They become rivals. You learn the other team's players. You hear from their fans very often, and you compete to become the best team in that little division, essentially. And then the winner of every division gets to go to the playoffs no matter what. So, for example, there's the Panthers, the Saints, and the Falcons. Or I guess the NFC is actually pretty strong. Let me go to the AFC. For example, in the AFC, Patriots, Steelers, Jaguars, and Chiefs were all the division winners. But the Chiefs have the same record as the Ravens. So you might say, oh, both the Ravens and the Chiefs are 9-6, which is, pretty good. But the Ravens might not make the playoffs because the Steelers have won that division, the AFC North, because they're Baltimore, Pittsburgh, over in the East Coast. And so there's been teams where there's a team that's better than another team in the playoffs just because they win a division. But that's just how the system works. So it's caused some confusion. But it makes it I think it makes it a little more exciting. But it's all opinion. Either way, I think you get what I'm saying. So I'm a Packers fan. The Vikings are in my division. And so I'm not a big Vikings fan. Hence why I don't like the Bears either, or the Lions. Although I kind of feel bad for the Lions, so I don't hate them as much. So the Vikings have played pretty good football this year. But what the Vikings do is they play good defense, and they have Case Keenum as their quarterback, who's a backup quarterback essentially. And he played when Sam Bradford went down. and he's kind of been a backup for a lot of years in the NFL at this point. He played with the Rams as a starter, but he was kind of a backup as well. Plays, back and forth. And then he started playing really well this year. My problem is when you get into the playoffs, everything gets turned up a notch. It's more competitive. Your mistakes are magnified. You throw an interception. It might be the game, and I think that's going to be what costs the Vikings. I think they're good enough to get to the championship round, but I don't know if they're good enough to win the Super Bowl with Case Keenum as their quarterback. I think he's going to make an error or a mistake when it's the crunch time. And I think this has happened numerous times, and it's cost players their jobs. For example, one year the Vikings were in the playoffs. I'm going to trigger a lot of Vikings fans. And they had to make a 20-yard field goal. It was like easier than an extra point practically. And he missed it with like 0 seconds remaining, like 1 second remaining. And he missed the field goal and they lost the game. And it was just, that type of thing where in a normal game, you wouldn't care, but playoffs are one and done. You lose, you go home. And so that was just, it cost the kicker his job. Ironically, I believe that kicker is now with Seattle, the team they lost to because of it. And then for another example is the Packers. There's a point where Packers played Seattle, and there's an onside kick, which are, maybe you'll get an onside kick recovered 5 to 10% of the time. It's where you take a risk and kick off the ball and try to get it for your own team. And they did that, and one of the Packer players didn't follow his job. He didn't do what he was supposed to do, and he tried to be a hero and get the ball, but he dropped it, and it cost him the game, and it cost him a trip to the Super Bowl, and it was very devastating because you worked this whole year, and then you have it messed up by that one play, and he's not even playing in the NFL anymore. So this is things that happen on this stage of competition in the playoffs when teams are competing for the championship. Like I said, it's magnified, everything you do. And if you're a hero, that gets magnified as well. Everyone remembers things like, oh my God, remember when this player made this crazy play in the playoffs, because, the expectations are heightened. And so if you can perform and thrive in the playoffs, you get a lot of memorable memories, essentially. There's a game, the last time the Bills were in the playoffs, they played the Titans. It was like the Titans' first or second year being being the Titans, and the Titans were essentially lost the game, and the only chance they had was to make a kick return for a touchdown, and they did it, but it was controversial because the way they did it was they got the ball and the guy lateraled it, which is a backwards pass to another player, but nobody could tell if it was really forward or backwards. And then the guy ran it all the way back for a touchdown at the end of the game to win. But there's just so much controversy of was it a legal play? Did he throw it correctly? Did he throw it kind of backwards? And they called it the Music City Miracle. But you can look up Music City Miracle on YouTube and you'll find it. But that was the last time the Bills were in the playoffs. And so I probably triggered probably triggering a lot of people's NFL team memories. I'm sorry. I did to myself. I did the Packers one. All right. And so my whole point behind everything I'm saying as I ramble is playoffs are important. Everything gets magnitude. And I think because the Vikings don't have their starting quarterback, they don't even technically have their starting running back, I think that's going to end up costing them to some of these teams that do have a full healthy team and are playing with a little more heightened sense of competition. But the Vikings do have the benefit of a bye week, so they can skip the first round of the playoffs and wait till the second, and they get to play at home, which is another big thing. But the wild card round right now looks like the Falcons would play the Rams and the Panthers would play the Saints. Now that could get switched up because the Seahawks could win, Falcons could lose, and the Rams would end up playing the Seahawks and the Panthers would play the Saints, which I think would be crazy games because Seahawks, Rams are in the same division. Panthers, Saints are in the same division. So you got some division rivalry games in the playoffs, and those always create very competitive games on top of the playoffs already being competitive. Panthers, Saints is going to be interesting because, like I said earlier in the video, they're kind of seeing who's going to get home field to play each other. And I think that could end up being what determines who wins that game. I think if the Panthers play at home, I'd probably pick the Panthers. And if the Saints play at home, I'd probably pick the Saints. Saints play in a dome. I think that favors their high-powered offense. Panthers play outside, and I think that favors the Panthers a bit more with their defense. You get home field, you get the crowd noise and everything playing into it. So it's gonna be crazy. Falcons, Rams. I think the Rams are gonna win no matter who they play. I like the Rams. And honestly, if I had to pick a team to go to the Super Bowl, I'd probably pick the Rams from the NFC. I think they have a good defense. They have a great defense, in fact. They have Todd Gurley, who, despite picking him in fantasy football 2 years ago, and him doing nothing, he decided this year to be one of the best players in football. So I passed him up this year, which I shouldn't have. And what do you know? It cost me, and I did terrible in fantasy football. But that's how this works. You know, players have good years, they have bad years. Some years they have good teams around them. Some years they have bad teams around them. For like the offensive line, sometimes you can get a really good offensive line, and that makes players around you better because you get good blocking. You get good running games from that. You get better passing because your quarterback has more time to throw the ball. And so a lot of the players you see making plays, like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, or running backs doing crazy plays, or wide receivers getting open and making plays, it all starts at the offensive line, giving them time to do that or creating holes for them to run through on the line. And vice versa. A lot of times teams have good defenses to break through that and pressure the quarterback into bad decisions or stop the running game. And so the Rams have done a good job of building up their offensive and defensive lines. And I think when it gets to this time of the year, they cause a lot of turnovers as well. And I think running game plus causing turnovers, holding teams with points, I'd say the Rams are going to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. You heard it here first. And then over in the AFC, I would say I think the Jaguars will win. I think the Chiefs will win. And I think we're going to get a rematch of, or was it a rematch of last year or the previous year? Either way, it was Chiefs-Patriots, and the Chiefs almost beat the Patriots. And I believe the Chiefs did beat the Patriots first game of the season this year. So the Chiefs can beat the Patriots, but I think the Patriots are still going to win. And then the Jaguars will play the Steelers, which I think would be a pretty good game. Jaguars actually crushed the Steelers earlier this year, but I think the Steelers would be very competitive. They have experience. They have good players. And I think the Steelers would probably pull it out, and then the Patriots would play the Steelers again. But I can't pick against the Patriots, and I hate the Patriots, don't get me wrong. I don't hate them as much as other people. I don't mind them really, but they're just always there, man. And I think it's going to be Patriots Rams, and I don't know how it would turn out, but I would hope the Rams would win. And that's my Super Bowl prediction. If I had to pick two teams I wanted to be in the Super Bowl, I would pick probably the Panthers. I don't know why, but I've kind of always liked the Panthers. After the Rams, I mean. So I think the Rams are going to make it. But if the Rams didn't make it, I'd want the Panthers or the Eagles. But I'd probably prefer the Panthers. And then I think I just like their logo and their uniforms. And then I would want the Jaguars just because I feel bad for the Jaguars or Buffalo. The Jaguars or Buffalo. Just any of the teams that aren't normally there. The Chargers, even the Titans, like any of those teams fighting for playoff spots right now. The Jaguars are already in, but you know what I mean. That'd be great. I'd love that. Maybe even just a cat Super Bowl. Let's go Panthers Jaguars. That's the Super Bowl I'm hoping for. Panthers Jaguars. But if not, I'd say Rams Patriots is my logical pick. And that's the NFL playoff picture right now. So I can check back in every week or in a few weeks or whenever it may be, and we can talk about it again. But either way, I hope you enjoyed listening, and I will be back to rant again soon. Okay. See you.